The holographic warning flashed red across Dr. Sarah Chen's lab terminal for the third time that morning. Human G-E-N-O-N-E projects TBT-7 failed. She slammed her fist against the desk, sending research tablets scattering across the sterile white surface. Another failure, another dead end. The year was 2157, and humanity was dying. Not with the bang of nuclear war or the whimper of climate collapse, but with the quiet inevitability of corrupted DNA. The human genome was breaking down, and no one knew why. Sarah stared through the reinforced windows of her underground laboratory, watching as pale, sickly humans shuffle through the corridors of Earth's last major research facility. Most couldn't produce viable offspring anymore. Those who gave birth to children who aged too quickly, their cells unable to properly replicate. Humanity had perhaps 2 generations left, 3 if they were lucky. The soft chime of her security scanner pulled her attention away from the depressing sight. Someone was accessing her lab's outer airlock. Strange, she wasn't expecting any visitors. The facility's skeleton crew rarely ventured down to the genetics level anymore, having lost hope in finding a cure. The inner door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, and Sarah's world turned upside down. The being that entered wasn't human. Nearly 7 feet tall, with iridescent purple skin that seemed to ripple like oil on water, the creature moved with impossible grace. But it was the tendrils, dozens of them, extending from its head and shoulders, that made Sarah's breath catch. They weren't just appendages. They were alive with purpose, shifting and weaving patterns in the air as if dancing to some unheard melody. Dr. Sarah Chen, the creature spoke, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that somehow formed perfect English. "I am Cathara, and I believe I can help save a species." Sarah's hand inched toward the security alarm, but curiosity stayed her fingers. Years of studying failing human DNA had taught her to recognize patterns, and the way this alien's tendrils moved, there was something familiar about it, something that reminded her of the double helix structure of DNA itself. "What are you?" she managed to ask, her scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "I am what your people would call a biowaver," Cathara replied, moving closer. Its tendrils continued their hypnotic dance. "My species evolved the ability to manipulate genetic code directly, to read and write DNA as easily as you read your computer screens." Sarah's heart raced. If this creature was telling the truth, "Prove it," she demanded, grabbing a sealed vial of degraded human DNA samples from her workstation. "Show me." Cathara's tendrils gently took the vial, and what happened next defied everything Sarah thought she knew about genetics. The alien's appendages began to glow with a soft bioluminescence, and through the glass she could see the DNA samples responding, restructuring themselves before her eyes. "This is just a temporary fix," Cathara explained, returning the vial. "The underlying problem remains, but it proves what I can do, what my people can do." Sarah's hands trembled as she ran the sample through her analyzer. The results were impossible. The DNA had been perfectly restored, every deteriorating sequence repaired. "Why are you here? Why help us?" Cathara's expression shifted, its features arranging themselves into what Sarah recognized as sadness. "Because my people are dying too, Dr. Chen. Not from genetic degradation, but from stagnation. We've become too perfect, too unchanging. We need humanity's adaptability, your capacity for change and growth, as much as you need our ability to rewrite genetic code. You're talking about some kind of exchange? A collaboration?" Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. "I'm talking about something more." Cathara moved closer, its tendrils swaying with excitement. "I'm talking about synthesis, a true joining of our species' abilities. But my people's leaders forbid it. They see humans as primitive, unworthy, just as I suspect your leaders would see us as monsters." Sarah thought of the dying children in the medical ward above, of humanity's dwindling numbers. I don't care what anyone forbids. If there's a chance to save both our species, I'll take it. Cathara's tendrils rippled with what might have been pleasure. There are risks, Dr. Chen. What I'm proposing has never been attempted. The process would require a deep connection, a joining of minds and bodies that would change both of us forever. Sarah looked at her failed research, at the blinking warnings that spelled humanity's doom. Then she looked at Cathara, at the impossible creature that represented hope. "Call me Sarah," she said finally, "and tell me everything." As Cathara began to explain, neither of them noticed the security camera in the corner of the lab, its red light blinking steadily as it transmitted everything to the facility's central command. In her office high above, Director Hayes watched the footage with growing alarm, her finger hovering over the button that would seal the genetics level and trap them both. But she didn't press it. Not yet, because for the first time in years, she saw something in Dr. Chen's eyes that had been missing from every researcher in the facility: hope. The beginning of humanity's last stand had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. 36 hours after Cathara's arrival, Sarah's lab had transformed. Holographic DNA strands danced through the air, interwoven with strange symbols she was only beginning to understand. The bioweaver's tendrils moved through them like a conductor directing an orchestra, manipulating genetic code with the ease of a master artist. "Your species' genetic structure is remarkable," Cathara observed, tendrils glowing as they analyzed another sample. "Flawed but remarkable, like a symphony played on damaged instruments." Sarah watched, mesmerized by the interplay of light and DNA. She'd barely slept, too fascinated by every revelation about bioweaver genetics. "Can you show me again how you read the sequences?" Instead of answering, Cathara extended a tendril toward her. "I could show you directly. The neural bridge would let you experience it as I do." Sarah's heart raced. They discussed the bridge, a direct mental connection that would allow her to understand bioweaver genetic manipulation firsthand. The risks were enormous. No human nervous system had ever interfaced with a bioweaver's neural network. "If something goes wrong," she started. "It could kill us both," Cathara finished. "Or worse. But without the bridge, without truly understanding each other's biological systems, we can't solve either of our species' problems." A sharp knock interrupted them. Director Hayes stood at the lab entrance, flanked by 2 security officers. Her face was a mask of professional concern. "Dr. Chen, a word. It wasn't a request." In the director's office, Sarah faced the full weight of human authority. Hayes sat behind her desk, with General Morrison and Dr. Patel, the facility's chief medical officer, on either side. "Do you have any idea what you're risking?" Hayes demanded. "That creature." "Cathara," Sarah corrected firmly. "That alien," Hayes continued, "could be lying about everything. This could be the prelude to an invasion, or a biological weapon test. Or, with respect, Director, we're already dying." Sarah leaned forward. "Cathara has demonstrated abilities far beyond our understanding of genetics. In 36 hours, they've made more progress on the degradation problem than we have in 5 years. And the neural bridge," Dr. Patel interjected. "You can't seriously be considering it. The human brain isn't designed for such connections." "The human brain wasn't designed for a lot of things we do now," Sarah countered, "and we don't have the luxury of time for conventional research methods." General Morrison cleared his throat. "There's another concern. Our long-range sensors detected a ship entering the solar system. Large, definitely not human. If your friend is here without their species approval, we could be looking at an interstellar incident." Sarah felt ice in her veins. Cathara had warned her their people would try to stop this. How long? 3 days, maybe 4, before they reach Earth. "Then you have to let us try the bridge now," Sarah insisted. "Whatever happens, humanity needs this knowledge. Even if it kills me, the data could save our species." Hayes studied her for a long moment. "You really believe in this alien, don't you?" "I believe in science, Director. And right now, Cathara represents our only hope for survival. Back in the lab, Cathara sensed her tension immediately. They're coming, aren't they? Sarah nodded, already preparing the neural interface equipment. We have 3 days at most. No more debates. No more tests. We do this now. Cathara's tendrils rippled with concern. Sarah, without proper preparation, the chances of severe neural damage. I don't care. She attached the monitoring devices to her temples. Show me everything. Show me how to save both our species. The first connection felt like fire in her brain. Color she had no names for exploded behind her eyes. She felt Cathara's consciousness brush against hers, alien yet somehow familiar. Their tendrils, glowing brighter than ever, gently wrapped around her arms, her neck, her waist. Through the haze of neural connection, Sarah began to understand. She saw genetic code as Cathara saw it, not as a sequence of letters and numbers, but as a living, breathing symphony. She saw how the bioweavers had evolved, how they had mastered genetic manipulation only to trap themselves in an evolutionary dead end of their own making. And Cathara saw humanity through her eyes. Their fierce determination to survive, their ability to adapt and change, their willingness to risk everything for a chance at survival. Their connection deepened, thoughts and memories flowing between them like water. Neither noticed when the lab's emergency lights began flashing. Neither heard Director Hayes' voice over the intercom, warning of approaching vessels. Neither saw the security teams taking up defensive positions throughout the facility. In that moment, suspended between two species, between survival and extinction, Sarah Chen and Cathara made their choice. As their minds merged more completely, as human determination met biowaiver knowledge, something new was born. The future of both species hung in the balance, and time was running out. The neural bridge transformed everything. Sarah's consciousness floated in a sea of genetic information, experiencing DNA as a living language. Through Cathara's memories, she witnessed the rise of biowaiver civilization, their mastery of genetic manipulation, their quest for biological perfection, and ultimately, their tragic stagnation. But it was Cathara who made the most shocking discovery. This isn't natural, their voice echoed through their shared consciousness. Your species' genetic degradation, it was engineered. Sarah felt her physical body gasp, distant and separate from her merged consciousness. What do you mean? Cathara's tendrils pulsed with agitation, sending ripples through their neural connection. Look here in your genetic code. These markers, they're biowaiver technology. Ancient, but unmistakable. Through their shared perception, Sarah saw what Cathara meant. Hidden deep in human DNA were subtle patterns, too precise to be natural evolution. Like time bombs, set to go off after a certain number of generations. Your people did this to us. The betrayal threatened to break their connection, but Cathara's tendrils tightened gently, steadying her. Not my people, they corrected. Something far older. The same ones who engineered my species into our current form. Cathara's memories shifted, showing Sarah ancient records discovered in abandoned genetic libraries. We weren't always like this. We were engineered too, modified to be living genetic tools. The truth hit Sarah like a physical blow. Both their species had been manipulated, shaped by some ancient civilization for unknown purposes. Humanity's adaptability and biowaiver genetic mastery weren't natural traits. They were designed, complementary abilities meant to work together. Their revelation was interrupted by Director Hayes' voice, cutting through their shared consciousness. Dr. Chen, we have multiple ships entering Earth's atmosphere. They're heading straight for the facility. The neural bridge dissolved as Sarah and Cathara separated, both reeling from their discovery. Sarah's legs buckled, but Cathara's tendrils caught her, supporting her weight effortlessly. The contact sent aftershocks of shared sensation through them both. The Biowaiver Genetic Council, Cathara said grimly. They must have detected our bridge. They'll try to stop us, to maintain the separation between our species. Why? Sarah demanded, still steadying herself. If we were meant to work together. Because it threatens their control, Cathara's tendrils darkened with emotion. The Council has maintained power by controlling genetic modification. If humans gained our abilities, if bioweavers gained your adaptability. We'd be unstoppable, Sarah finished. She rushed to her computer, fingers flying over the holographic interface. The genetic markers in human DNA, can we use them? Turn our supposed weakness into a strength. Cathara moved behind her, tendrils extending to interact with the genetic data streaming across the screen. Their closeness sent shivers through Sarah's body, an echo of their neural connection lingering between them. Yes, they breathed, their voice carrying new excitement. The degradation sequence, it's not just breaking down human DNA, it's preparing it for something, a transformation. Warning klaxons blared through the facility. Above them, the first bioweaver ships would be landing. Sarah felt Cathara's fear and determination through their fading connection, mixed with something deeper, more personal. This is what they were afraid of, Cathara said softly, their tendrils gently brushing Sarah's face. Not just our species working together, but this, us. Sarah turned to face them, her heart pounding. In Cathara's alien features, she saw something profound, not just a scientific partner, but something more. Their shared consciousness had left an indelible mark on them both. The neural bridge, she said suddenly. It didn't just let us share knowledge. It started a change in both of us, didn't it? Cathara's tendrils rippled with confirmation. Our genetic codes are adapting to each other. The ancient programming is activating. If we complete the process, we could save both our species, Sarah finished. But we'd be the first. We'd be something entirely new. The facility shook as the first bioweaver ships landed on the surface. They had minutes at most before the Council found them. Sarah looked at her lab, at her years of research, then back at Cathara. I'm not afraid, she said firmly, reaching for them. Cathara's tendrils entwined with her fingers, their touch electric with possibility. Neither am I. As security alerts blared and boots thundered in the corridors above, Sarah Chen and Cathara initiated another neural bridge. This time, they weren't just sharing information. They were reshaping their own genetic codes, guided by ancient programming and their own intertwined consciousness. Their transformation would either save both their species or destroy them both. But in that moment, surrounded by the symphony of changing DNA, neither of them had any doubts. The next stage of evolution had begun. The transformation burned through them like liquid starfire. Sarah felt her DNA rewriting itself, guided by Cathara's expertise and the ancient programming hidden in their genes. Her skin tingled with new sensitivity, her mind expanding to accommodate neural pathways that had never existed in a human brain before. Cathara's tendrils, now threaded with strands of human DNA, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that matched Sarah's rapidly changing genetic code. They were becoming something unprecedented, neither human nor bioweaver, but a perfect synthesis of both. The lab door exploded inward. Bioweaver security forces, their tendrils bristling with defensive postures, filled the entrance. Behind them stood arch-geneticist Vareth, leader of the Genetic Council, his silver-white tendrils reflecting his elite status. This abomination must end, Vareth declared, his voice carrying harmonics of authority and disgust. Farah, you have violated our most sacred laws. The human must be terminated, and you will face genetic reconditioning. But they were too late. The transformation had progressed too far. Sarah felt new appendages sprouting from her shoulders and spine, not quite bioweaver tendrils, but something uniquely her own. They moved with instinctive grace, already attuned to the genetic code around her. You don't understand, Cathara said, their voice strengthened by their connection to Sarah. This was always meant to happen. We were engineered for this union. Director Hayes' voice crackled over the intercom, tense but controlled. Dr. Chen, We have human security forces standing by. What are your orders? Sarah straightened, feeling power course through her transformed body. Through her new senses, she could see the genetic structure of everyone in the room, could read their DNA like open books. Tell them to stand down, Director. This is a battle of genetics, not weapons. Vareth's tendrils whipped forward, attempting to analyze and override their transformed genetic codes. But Sarah and Cathara moved as one, their combined abilities creating an impenetrable genetic defense. Their shared consciousness expanded, allowing them to perceive DNA manipulation on a level that even the arch-geneticist couldn't match. Impossible, Vareth whispered, his tendrils recoiling. Your codes have merged perfectly. The compatibility, the sophistication. Because this is what we were meant to be, Sarah said, her new appendages dancing with the same genetic mastery as Cathara's tendrils. Your precious genetic purity was a dead end. Evolution demands change, demands growth. The security forces moved to attack, but Sarah and Cathara were ready. Their combined abilities let them emit waves of genetic stabilization, temporarily paralyzing their attackers without harm. Vareth alone remained standing, protected by his advanced genetic modifications. You don't realize what you've done, the arch-geneticist snarled. This could destroy both our species. Uncontrolled evolution, unauthorized hybridization, the chaos would be unlimited. No, Cathara countered, their tendrils intertwining with Sarah's new appendages. What destroys species is stagnation. Look at your own genetic code, Vareth. Look at the degradation hidden beneath your supposed perfection. Sarah projected her enhanced senses, letting everyone in the room see what she and Cathara could perceive, the subtle but unmistakable signs of genetic decay in the bioweavers, mirroring humanity's more obvious deterioration. Both our species are dying, she declared. Yours slowly, ours quickly, but the end result is the same. This transformation isn't just about Cathara and me, it's about survival. Through their connection, Sarah felt Cathara's memories of endless genetic council meetings, watching their species grow more rigid, more afraid of change with each generation. She shared her own memories of watching human children age too fast, of families mourning their inability to reproduce, of a species slowly fading away. Vareth's tendrils trembled, whether with rage or fear they couldn't tell. And you think this, merger is the answer? Becoming neither one species nor the other? We think it's a beginning, Cathara said softly. Their transformed bodies moved closer together, their combined genetic influence filling the room with subtle power. A chance to take the best of both species and create something new, something that can survive. Sarah felt the truth of it in every cell of her transformed body. She and Cathara weren't just two individuals who had changed. They were a prototype, a proof of concept for what both species could become. Their success proved that humanity's adaptability and bioweaver genetic mastery could combine into something greater than either. But Vareth wasn't finished. His tendrils began to glow with dangerous intensity. If I can't stop this abomination, I can at least contain it. The genetic override codes. He never finished the sentence. Sarah and Cathara's combined consciousness reached out, reading his genetic structure faster than he could attack. They found the override codes he planned to use, emergency sequences meant to shut down unauthorized genetic manipulation. The old codes don't work on us, Sarah said, almost pitying him. With something new. The lab's emergency lights began flashing again. Above them, more bioweaver ships were arriving, probably carrying reinforcements. But Sarah and Cathara stood their ground, their transformed bodies proof of what was possible when artificial barriers were broken. The price of progress was high. They could never return to what they had been before. But as their enhanced senses reached out to the failing genes of both species, they knew the cost was worth it. The real battle for survival was just beginning. News of Sarah and Cathara's successful transformation spread like wildfire through both human and bioweaver societies. Security footage of their merger, leaked by someone inside the facility, went viral across Earth's remaining networks. The sight of a human manifesting biowaiver-like abilities while maintaining her human consciousness sparked something that had been missing from both species: hope. 3 days after their transformation, the underground genetics lab had become the heart of a growing movement. Dr. Patel, who had initially opposed the neural bridge, was now working alongside them, studying their merged genetic structure with unconcealed amazement. "The compatibility is extraordinary," he muttered, reviewing the latest scans. "Your human DNA hasn't just adapted to the biowaiver modifications, it's improved them. And the biowaiver genetic manipulation abilities have stabilized the human degradation patterns." Sarah, her new appendages now a shimmering bronze-gold color that complemented Cathara's purple tendrils, monitored the genetic sequences floating in the holographic display. Through their permanent neural link, she felt Cathara's satisfaction at the results. "More coming," Cathara announced, their shared consciousness detecting approaching minds. Both human and biowaiver, they want the transformation. The facility's corridors were already crowded with volunteers, dying humans desperate for a cure, younger bioweavers who had secretly opposed the Genetic Council's stagnation. Director Hayes had been forced to convert entire floors into temporary housing. "The council is mobilizing," General Morrison reported, entering the lab with fresh intelligence. "They're calling it a genetic plague, demanding that Earth's governments quarantine anyone showing signs of transformation." Sarah felt Cathara's anger mirror her own. "They're afraid because they can't control it," she said. "The ancient programming responds to voluntary connection only. You can't force the transformation, and you can't stop it in those who choose it." Through their enhanced senses, they monitored the growing number of successful transformations throughout the facility. Each pair, human and bioweaver, emerged unique, their merged forms reflecting their individual traits while maintaining the core benefits of both species. "Vareth is addressing the biowaiver assembly," Cathara said suddenly, their consciousness picking up transmissions from their homeworld. "He's calling for direct intervention, a genetic purge of Earth." Sarah's new appendages darkened with concern, reaching out to intertwine with Cathara's tendrils. The contact strengthened their connection, allowing them to share the full scope of their worry. "We need to show them," Sarah decided. "Not just tell them, but show them what this really means." She turned to Director Hayes, who had just entered the lab. "How quickly can you arrange a global broadcast?" Hayes' expression was grim. "The old emergency broadcast systems still work, but the Council will try to block any transmission." "Let them try," Cathara said, their tendrils glowing with newfound strength. "Our combined abilities can pierce their communications barriers." They worked through the night, preparing for their most ambitious genetic manipulation yet. As the transformed pairs throughout the facility added their strength to the effort, Sarah and Cathara constructed a genetic broadcast, a message written in the language of DNA itself. When dawn broke, they were ready. Sarah stood before the broadcast equipment, her transformed body glowing with gathered power. Cathara's tendrils wove around her, their combined abilities focused to a razor's edge. "People of Earth and the biowaiver worlds," Sarah began, her voice carrying harmonics that spoke to both species. "You've been told that what's happening here is an abomination, a plague, but look closer. Look at the truth written in your own genes." Through that unprecedented mastery of genetic manipulation, Sarah and Cathara projected the reality of both species' engineered nature. Every viewer, human and bioweaver alike, could suddenly see the artificial constraints in their DNA, the deliberate limitations placed on them by ancient engineers. "We were meant to be more than this," Cathara continued, their voices harmonizing perfectly. "The degradation in human DNA, the stagnation in biowaiver genetics, they're not natural failures. They're planned obsolescence, meant to force us together when the time was right." The broadcast pierced through every attempt to block it. Around the world, humans felt their own DNA responding to the message. Across biowaiver space, even the most conservative scientists couldn't deny the evidence encoded in their genes. "The choice is yours," Sarah declared. "Stay as you are, bound by artificial limitations, or embrace the potential we were always meant to achieve. Evolution doesn't end, change doesn't stop, and neither will we." As if in answer to their call, alarms blared throughout the facility. The Genetic Council's main fleet had arrived in Earth's orbit, carrying enough firepower to sterilize continents. But they weren't alone. Hundreds of younger biowaivers, inspired by the broadcast, had broken ranks. Their ships formed a protective screen around Earth, defying the Council's authority for the first time in their species' history. In cities around the world, transformed pairs emerged from hiding, their combined abilities creating safe havens for those who chose evolution over stagnation. The rebellion that Sarah and Cathara had started was becoming a revolution. Vareth's voice cut through their communications. "This ends now. If we must sacrifice Earth to preserve genetic purity, so be it." Sarah and Cathara stood together, their transformed bodies resonating with shared purpose. The final battle for both species' future was about to begin, and they were ready. Evolution would not be denied. The Biowaiver Council's flagship hung in Earth's orbit like a sword of Damocles, its massive form eclipsing the sun over North America. Through their enhanced senses, Sarah and Cathara could feel the genetic weapons being prepared, engineered viruses designed to unravel any DNA showing signs of transformation. "They'll destroy everything," Thara said, their tendrils intertwined with Sarah's appendages as they monitored the situation. Billions of innocent lives, just to maintain their illusion of control. But Sarah had seen something in the genetic patterns they broadcast, a hidden truth that even Vareth didn't know. "No," she said, her transformed consciousness racing with revelation. "They can't." Through their neural link, she shared her discovery with Cathara. The ancient engineers hadn't just prepared their species for eventual merger. They built in safeguards against extinction-level genetic warfare. The same programming that was allowing humans and bioweavers to transform would protect them from any attempt at genetic purging. Vareth's voice boomed through global communications. "This is your final warning. Surrender the transformed for genetic cleansing, or face species-wide purification." Sarah stepped onto the facility's roof, Cathara at her side. Around them, dozens of other transformed pairs emerged. Scientists, soldiers, teachers, artists, each unique in their merger yet united in purpose. Their combined genetic influence created a visible aurora in the sky, a testament to their evolved power. "You don't understand what we've become," Sarah broadcast back, her voice carrying genetic harmonics that made Vareth's tendrils tremble. "What we were always meant to be." Through their expanded consciousness, Sarah and Cathara reached out to every transformed pair on Earth. Their combined abilities created a network of shared genetic mastery, each union adding its strength to the whole. Even the resistant biowaiver ships in orbit felt the pull of their ancestral programming awakening. "The ancient engineers didn't make us to fight each other," Cathara declared, their tendrils glowing with unprecedented power. "They made us to transcend our limitations, together." Vareth's response was predictable. "Fire the purification arrays. Cleanse this abomination from existence." The biowaiver flagship's weapons discharged, sending streams of engineered viruses toward Earth. But as the genetic weapons entered the atmosphere, something unprecedented happened. The transformed pairs didn't fight the attack. They embraced it, their combined abilities turning the weapon's own genetic code against itself. Sarah and Cathara led the effort, their merged consciousness guiding the others. Where Vareth had intended destruction, they created transformation. The viral payload became a carrier for the very change he had tried to prevent. Through their enhanced senses, they could see it happening. Across Earth and throughout the biowaiver fleet, the artificial barriers in both species' DNA were breaking down. Those who wanted evolution could no longer be denied it. Those who resisted remained unchanged, but they could no longer stop the tide of willing transformation. Impossible, Vareth's voice cracked as he watched his weapons fail. The genetic codes, they're rewriting themselves. No, Sarah corrected, her voice gentle despite their victory. We're rewriting ourselves, as we were always meant to do. The transformed pairs rose into the air, their combined genetic mastery defying gravity itself. They surrounded the BioWaver ships, not with aggression but with an offer of peace and choice. The age of artificial limitation is over, Kefara announced to both fleets. We are neither human nor BioWaver now. We are the next step for those who choose to take it. In the days that followed, the transformation spread to those who welcomed it. Cities around Earth became genetic sanctuaries where humans and bioweavers could merge safely. The Genetic Council, its authority broken by Vareth's failed attack, gave way to a new era of voluntary evolution. Sarah and Kefara stood in their lab one last time, watching the sunrise through transformed eyes. Their appendages and tendrils danced together, writing new genetic sequences in the air, possibilities that neither species could have imagined alone. Was this really the plan all along? Sarah wondered, feeling the ancient programming that had guided them. For us to become something entirely new. Kefara's consciousness brushed hers with affection. I think the plan was for us to choose our own evolution, to prove we were ready to guide our own destiny. Above them, ships from across the galaxy were arriving, other species drawn by news of their transformation. Some showed signs of similar genetic engineering, suggesting that humanity and the bioweavers weren't the only ones meant for such evolution. But that was a mystery for another day. For now, Sarah and Kefara had work to do. There were others to guide, transformations to oversee, and an entirely new form of life to explore. They were no longer just two individuals, nor even just two species. They were the beginning of something greater, proof that evolution's greatest leaps come not from competition, but from cooperation, from the willingness to become something new together. The dawn of unity had begun, and the universe would never be the same.